Alright, so today's job is fertilizing the field of Sudan grass that I planted a little while ago. I went out there probably a week or so back at this point, and it's coming up really well, which I'm super excited about. And it is probably going to rain in the next 3 days. It certainly feels like rain today, but lucky the weather dog, he wasn't all that clingy, so I don't think it's actually going to rain today. But I could see it coming in the next day or two. Anyway, buying fertilizer, man, goodness, I have never in my entire life had more problems purchasing a pretty simple, fairly straightforward commodity than this ever. And there's really nothing, I guess like welding gas would be a close second because, you know, you have to deal with a lot of really incompetent local suppliers, but you know, I finally found a good one. But fertilizer, goodness. So I figured out what kind of fertilizer I want to use and about how much of it hopefully needs to go on this field, famous last words. And so I go to this one place that I won't say it was really recommended to me, but people have spoken of it. And you know, I start talking to the guy behind the counter, and this guy is just like incredibly rude and just straight up nasty. There's no two ways to put it. I know, you know, I don't really like to say things like that. I really don't usually have problems like that when I go to buy stuff. It's just not something that I regularly, usually I get along with more people, with most people, you know, at least well enough to have a pretty straightforward business transaction with them. But there are exceptions to every rule. And the last time I went to buy something or deal with a retail establishment and they're straight up nasty and unpleasant to that level was probably a good 5 years or so ago when I lived in Austin. So, you know, having one encounter like that every 5 years, can't really complain too much, but it was not especially productive for the fertilizer buying thing. So, you know, I hear of a couple other places. I make probably like 20 different phone calls trying to find other places that sell dry fertilizer, because a lot of these places, they're kind of, you know, everybody knows they're there, so they don't really advertise that much. So if you're relatively new to this is only my third season, the first one I've tried to fertilize my fields in. You know, it's kind of takes some digging around to actually figure out where these places are. But anyway, call second place. Oh yeah, you know, everything's gonna be great, but you know, we're sold out of everything until yesterday. Call today. Nope, still sold out of everything. Goodness. All right, so then there's another place like a solid 30 miles from where I live. But I'm like, okay, fine. You know, I call them like, hey, you know, do you guys have this? Oh yeah, it's definitely something we sell. You know, if you're gonna buy some, all you need is, you know, this and that, and we'll get you all set up. So I drive all the way out here, and the lady's like, oh, well, we sell that. We're just out of it right now. Like, I just drove 30 miles. Anyway, so we're driving back from that. And so, you know, just everything about this, and this isn't even where it ends. I know I've been ranting about buying fertilizer for like 4 solid minutes at this point, but I'm gonna keep going for a little while. So, you know, when I decided I was gonna throw down some fertilizer, I figured I'd use the system that I use to plant with, which is the broadcast seeder on the spreader, and you know, just use that. I've got a trailer that you put bags of seed on, or, you know, bulk anything and drums or whatever. Absolutely no one will sell fertilizer in anything other than they have these stupid little pull behind buggy things. You know, some of you guys know what I'm talking about. I'll try to find a picture, but pretty much no one is even willing to sell fertilizer in any form other than into those buggies. And the weird thing is, like, I understand if you rent those from the place so they, you know, so they can upsell you on the rental or what, but they don't. Like, they're free to use. I'm sure it's built into the price, and they are not willing to load into anything else. A lot of these places aren't. So the problem with this is none of these fertilizer places are anywhere even remotely close to where I live. And these things, they typically have implement tires on them, which are good for like 30 miles an hour, no brakes. The few of these things I have seen have been slopped out and destroyed and abused and badly maintained. So it's a problem, because the place where now hopefully we're going to buy fertilizer from today, goodness, hopefully, anyway, this place is like a solid hour plus from where I live. And if I have to buy one of these, you know, little stupid midget buggy things, if I have to rent one of these, you know, instead of just driving out to this place 75, 80 miles an hour on our Texas highways, you know, I have to make a return trip from that at 30 miles an hour, going the most inefficient, indirect, mind-numbing way possible on the back roads. Then after I spread with this thing, I have to drive all the way out there. That hour-long trip by truck is like probably 2.5 hours with these stupid little buggies that I don't even want. And then I have to drive all the way back from that. So, you know, we can't just load the fertilizer onto a trailer and dump it into the hopper on the back of the tractor. This is much too simple. Under no circumstances can this be allowed to happen. We must jack with it and screw with it so it's at least several times as inefficient and difficult and frustrating. So anyway, long story short, I found a couple of feed stores like an hour away who actually A, sell fertilizer, and B, have it in stock. And they have it in 50-pound bags, which is obviously more expensive than purchasing it in bulk in their little reed spreaders. But I've decided I'm going to do this because yes, it will cost me $100 or $150 more, but compared to using the buggies, if I use these stupid buggies, it's going to at least triple the volume of fuel that it takes and add, I did the math, probably at least 4 hours to doing what should be a very simple, straightforward job. So that extra $100 or $150 or whatever it cost me to buy this stuff in bag form, looking really appealing right now. Anyway, I'm only like probably 40 minutes from where I live at this point. And when we get back there, we're gonna grab the trailer, and this will be like my third attempt at buying fertilizer. How complicated can we make a very simple task? This is the way it seems to be going right now. Anyway, goodness, solid 7.5 minutes into this, I feel much better. Hopefully, now that I've invested probably a good, between this and the last attempts at buying fertilizer, I'm invested in this a good 6 or 8 hours, and I have not seen so much as a single grain of granular fertilizer. Hopefully we get something done today, because quite frankly, life is too short for this nonsense. Check it out, Goyim, I got fertilizer. And the bad news is that I will have been driving for over 4 hours today to get this stuff, when there are, I believe, 3 places within about 30 minutes of where I live that normally sell fertilizer, but one of which is just outright incompetent and belligerent, and at least 2 of the others, maybe at this point all 3 of them, are completely out of fertilizer. But whatever the case, gotta do what you gotta do, and it saved a lot of having to move stuff around and go home and get the trailer, so it's worth it. And man, you know, for the disaster that dealing with those other fertilizer places was, the place I actually bought this stuff was awesome. I think I was in that store under 2 minutes between when I walked in, told the friendly old like grandmothery lady behind the counter what I wanted, and she got me rang up, and I really think it was under 2 minutes I was in that place. And then they got me loaded probably like within 5 minutes, and they even shrink wrapped all that stuff together really nice. So whatever the case, yeah, got this stuff, got to move it, and we're gonna try to hit the field. It's 2:30. One plus I will say is no longer looks or feels like rain. So as usual, lucky the weather dog was right. Don't think it's gonna rain today. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think there's an overwhelming chance I will get this stuff spread before the rain comes here. Oh my goodness. This is just never gonna get done. All right, so I'm out here minding my own business, just cruising along, and all of a sudden I hear something that sounds like a pair of tennis shoes and a dryer. And I come back here, and it would appear as though the PTO shaft for this thing's gearbox has decided to take a vacation and never come back. This is one of the biggest problems I've had farming. Other than 100 inches a year of rain, it's just really hard to keep the wheels on things. Everything is perpetually broken. Even new stuff like this tractor that spent weeks in the shop last year. And you know, now I think that's fixed. This is a brand new spreader last year. I've used it like 3 times. And if you're gonna attempt to farm with used stuff, I know some people somehow make a go of it, but from my experience, you might as well just not even bother. You've got to be kidding me. How does this even happen? I don't even have a theory. Okay, so the craziest part of this story isn't the sheer level of dysfunctionality in farm-based, agricultural retail sectors, although that by itself is substantial. It's not the brand new equipment that won't stop breaking. The craziest part of this story is actually what happened after this video was filmed. And what happened is nothing. I learned, and especially the period of time after this, the chemical fertilizer, and this is not going to be a popular opinion, but I don't even care. I learned that chemical fertilizer is a complete and total scam. Like, it's not even a thing. All right, and here's the reason why I say that. I know that sounds insane, but hear me out. Okay, what some people will do, especially a lot of hobby farmers and folks just getting going, is they will just sort of pick a random approach and just yeet some fertilizer out on a field that, Uncle Boomer said on whatever internet forum, this is just what we use and works great. Okay, there's not really any basis for the type of fertilizer that they put out or the quantity that they apply it at. Okay, I did not do that. I, even back when this was filmed, realized that there's not enough of a profit margin in agriculture to be making mistakes of that sort. Okay, so I didn't do that. I actually took the time to dig up a whole bunch of soil samples and I sent them to the state agricultural college. And so that the testing that they do is done right. I mean, it is done to the limits of what math and physics will allow soil to be quantified at. I mean, just the sheer thought of quantifying aspects of soil with numbers, I mean, that is an insane thought, but just go with it because that's how this works. Okay, so that's what they do. And they put out recommendations like this field, for what you're trying to grow, and with these nutrient levels, it needs, the aforementioned, and that is exactly to the T what I went out and bought. I spent thousands of dollars on fertilizer throughout this season, and what happened is my yields did not change at all. There was no noticeable improvement whatsoever with countless thousands of dollars of fertilizer I put down. So I sat down at the end of the year. It's like, yeah, that seems like kind of a waste of money. I'm going to not do that. And you guys aren't going to believe what happened. Nothing. My yields did not go down at all since I stopped buying fertilizer. In fact, they, in some cases, actually went up. So I concluded that chemical fertilizer, it's not even a thing. It's a total scam. Okay, the thought of having plant fertility in like a chemical grain, yeah, I mean, that's a ridiculous thought in the first place if you think about it. Okay, but yeah, chemical fertilizer doesn't work. It's not even a thing. Total scam, 100% waste of money. That's, obviously people will disagree with this, but that's just my experience, and I really went out of my way to do this right, and that's what happened. Okay, so I learned that if one is trying to improve soil fertility, well, what I switched to doing after this was running a land Sabbath type of program, which the ecclesiastical frauds insist no longer matters, but I've seen firsthand that that alone helps substantially. Okay, also there's cover crops and, if possible, animal manure. But yeah, I stopped buying fertilizer, no regrets whatsoever. What's interesting is after I filmed this, like the season after this, that was when fertilizer prices shot through the roof, and at least a substantial number of small farmers actually sat down and did the math and figured out that if we buy this fertilizer, for what it costs, we're not going to get a return off of this. And so a lot of people started going about soil fertility issues and other ways around that time. And yeah, so anyway, long story short, this whole thing was kind of a mind-blowing experience. But yeah, that's how the world of farm businesses works, and that's what I learned about how chemical fertilizer isn't even a thing. So anyway, yeah, that's my story, and yeah, these are my farming adventures. Yay!